Welcome back. It's time for Press Review. We take a look at what's being covered by our local papers and analyze them accordingly. Now, joining the conversation, we have County Governance Watch Director Kevin Osido, as well as Steve Ogola, who's a lawyer. Welcome to the show, gents. Now, starting us off is the standard secret plot to force teachers into poll. Now, this has to do with the wrangles and with regards to bodies governing teachers, all matters teachers. And we have, after the contested ouster of Wilson Sosion, two top NAT officials are now fighting for their jobs as TSC declares they should have retired. And more details are on page 6 of the standard. Tell us what you think. I'll start with you, Mr. Ogola.
Well, I think the bottom line is this. TSC has no mandate to interfere in the internal affairs of NAT. So it cannot be directing. But I know what they have been doing is that once they strike out the name of a teacher from the role, the way they did to Honorable Sosion, effectively it now means that Sosion cannot sit in NAT. But that is the kind of interference that I think will undermine the functional independence of NAT. And then NAT will not be able to articulate its mandate the way the members had hoped. And I think also there's the problem of continued or over-deference by NAT leadership to TSC. There's the difference between collaboration and co-option.
Is it even possible for the two bodies to collaborate?
NAT must determine, must say, collaboration is a necessary requirement. It's part of our governance structure. I don't think in this new dispensation you can talk about antagonistic, disruptive relationship between NAT and TSC. But collaboration is not co-option. TSC, NAT is not a department in TSC. So it cannot be subservient to TSC, taking instructions from TSC, or TSC looking for loopholes to micromanage the affairs of NAT. And I think there's a problem. There's a problem with the way the leadership of NAT is being, the affairs of NAT is being managed, and in the long run, that may affect its own, the integrity of its voice to speak for the membership. So I think this is something that they need to review.
Now, to be more specific about this development, we are told in the story that NAT National Chair Wycliffe Omuchei and First Vice Chairman Collins Oyu are now fighting to remain in office in the wake of revelations that the TSC Commission does not recognize them as serving teachers, which is a requirement to be at the helm of that body. And obviously, they have submitted their IDs. One ID indicates that Omuchei was born in 1961, not 1958, as proof of their eligibility to be, you know, part of the body. But then, of course, this just seems like politics and some sort of machinations behind the scenes. Don't you agree, Mr. Osido?
Trix, you and I have been here for quite some time now talking about NAT and TSC. And this is not just about the politics of the two institutions. One is actually a constitutional commission that has very clear mandates. It has its roles and responsibilities. The other one is a membership union, Kenya National Union of Teachers, for which you become a member by virtue of being a teacher. And I think that is what really happens to most associations and member organizations. We know that most likely the background and the foundation of all these wars have a lot to do with the CBC. And because we've talked about the curriculum-based, the competency-based curriculum, which is our new curriculum today, and we have many times asked and advised Ministry of Education to consider a stakeholder engagement process, a process that is also rested on our constitution. I think we now need to delve into what are the key issues that are troubling NAT, and do they have anything to do with the CBC? Because I think initially it was about involvement and engagement in the processes leading to the launch, and much more fundamentally to look at how we sustain the entire curriculum. But I don't think this and so to your question, it was about the politics. And I think I agree with you, because initially we thought it had a lot to do with the issues surrounding CBC, which by now, honestly speaking, should have been dealt with. But if the battleground has now gone back to TSC and NAT, it is my humble opinion and submission that these two institutions need to get back to dealing with their governance systems and structures. And if, for instance, it is common knowledge that if you are a staff of any institution, in particularly a civil servant, you retire at a particular age. If the ID says that you have attained the age of retirement, honorably retire. If there are issues with your age and you've submitted an ID, I don't think that TSC therefore has a lot of time really to waste on two people, other than engaging in very fundamental issues for which the citizens of this great republic have given them work to be able to do. Absolutely. But I think for me, I would love a scenario where people engage, dialogue, talk about their issues, and that it doesn't have to really be blown off in this kind of manner.
Yeah, so it will be interesting to see how that one develops. And I mean, don't you think that at this rate, NAT needs to be fixing its constitution and its systems to seal loopholes that seem to be...
It needs.
Yeah.
It actually needs to. And you see, one of the things that we have talked about in the past, and which I think is also a gap in the constitution of NAT, is, for example, the place of Mheshimiwa Sosion. That you are a Secretary General, then you become a chair, and then you are also a nominated member. And the question we have asked is, okay, so your members want you out. But what does that mean to their representation? Because you are in the National Assembly, you are representing them at that level, having been nominated by a political party through the work and on the virtue of who you are as a member of KNUT. And that happens to many other organizations and institutions. In fact, it is how political parties are supposed to engage and work. That you write letters to institutions and then they nominate members. And I think that that's the practice that even State House does. When the president wants to hold a function, for example, they write to people out there to nominate people who would wish to be invited to sit with His Excellency the President. And the practice is common everywhere. As an organization, for example, if we have events which would interest other people, we write letters to them to nominate representatives to come and sit and partake of what it is that we want to discuss. So if members feel, for instance, that their leader, Mr. Sosion, does not serve their interest, then they need to delve deeper into how do you therefore eject a member who has taken leadership of that kind of place. And then how do you feel? Because then as you kick the person out, there has to be within your constitution and the governance structure of your institution a way of filling those gaps. And I think the beauty is that now we are seeing a lot of gaps within unions or associations and institutions like NAT. And I think the onus therefore rests on the members. That instead of haggling out there with policemen and running off tear gas and all that, please sit in your boardrooms. And if you need legal advice, look for lawyers like my friend Steve to dig deeper into the gaps in your constitution. And if you need governance, corporate governance training, come to County Governance Watch. We will be very ready and happy and willing to help you deal with the gaps in your governance system.
Just hold on. There's something we must clarify. Listen, TSC must not be seen to be interfering with the functional independence of NAT. Can you say, as it is now, that perception of interference is not there?
It is there.
It is there. TSC is interfering with the functional mandate and independence of NAT, and that's a bad thing. Now, if you're looking for loopholes or opportunities to antagonize someone, always exist. I mean, if I want to look for an opportunity within the ranks and file of NAT leadership to antagonize I will always find. So I think TSC must be careful to preserve the functional independence of NAT. And NAT must also be careful to defend their space. They should not be seen, as I think from observers, the way we observe that space, there is a feeling that there's some infighting within NAT. And TSC is coming in to claim dividends. So if teachers are deferring to NAT, if NAT is deferring to TSC, they are weakening their own association. The question of removal of some teachers based on age, it's a technical issue. Teachers can easily re-elect, so that's not a problem. The problem is there's an emerging philosophy of subservience, that teachers are already giving so much of their independence to TSC, and TSC is happy to claim that independence. Now, that is not necessarily a good thing. And as I've already said, you have to distinguish between what is necessary collaboration, because you can't do without it,
yes,
and preservation of your independence.
and integrity, I would
And
imagine.
integrity within the organizational structure of NAT.
Absolutely, yeah. And as all this happens, as is reported on the paper, there's a hemorrhaging of members who are opting for Kuppet because they feel that they do not want to be caught in the crossfire of whatever is happening between NAT and TSC, or other reasons that might be behind that massive switch to the other union. Now, let's move on to a sad story that has made the headlines today morning. We have a boy who lost his life amid efforts by the police to disperse a mob at a Changa den. And the headline for that on the Standard is on page 3, boy 3 killed as police disperse mob at Changa den. Now, when you look at The Nation, it has a more emotive headline right there. We are being asked, did this boy have to die? Police kill over a bribe. And this is also being termed as murder most foul, where we are asked we're told that a demand for a routine 50-shilling bribe by a police officer on patrol at a Changa den in a slum in Kahawa West, Nairobi, turned tragic after a 2-year boy was shot at range in unclear circumstances. Now, that paper, the Daily Nation, says he was 2. The Standard say he was 3. All at the end of the day, it's an unclear circumstances which led to his death. And of course, at 3 or 2, whatever age, it's pretty unfortunate. Mr. Ogola.
No, what is happening is this. The police must come out quickly to address the emerging concern of excessive use of force.
Yeah.
That is the legal question that emerges from this killing.
Yeah.
You know, the family certainly will get rid of the officer who fired the shot, will be arrested and arraigned in court, but there's a deeper problem there of perception again. If left unexplained, there's going to be a crisis of perception that the police are not willing to be bound by the United Nations human rights standards for law enforcement officers.
Yes.
And they are aware. They're aware on use of escalation of force, especially use of lethal force. Absolutely. Use of lethal force, you can't, in a perfect setting, you cannot use live ammunition. You cannot fire, bullets at an armed crowd. You're just dispersing a crowd. What are you doing firing? So they know they are not supposed to do that. So they need to explain to the public, is this an isolated incident for which the police regrets terribly, and for which an assurance has been given that there will be no repeat, or is it a reflection of an underlying deeper problem of a failure to understand the need to respect human rights during law enforcement activities?
Yeah.
They must explain that.
Absolutely, and it brings to mind the incident with Baby Pendo, who was killed during the post-election fracas in one of the local neighborhoods. Now, we are being told that IPOA spokesman Dennis Okage said that the agency has dispatched a team to the scene to establish the circumstances under which this boy was killed, and he has said that it is unfortunate that an innocent life was lost. Mr. Osido.
Yeah, this is quite unfortunate. Sincere condolences to the family of this young boy. But I think that one of the things that really needs to come out clear is how we deal with some of these issues, because this is not the first case.
No.
I'm sure it is not the second, it's neither the first one nor is it going to be the last one, and especially because of past experiences. And you rightfully mentioned Baby Pendo's case that was charged in court, and I think the police officer was found guilty. But beyond that, you note that if you read this story, there are many different narratives, including the fact that the police are saying that they had gone to make an arrest, and the witnesses say they were arguing over a bribe and how much they are supposed to get and all that. Probably as IPOA is taking up this case, it would be very important to request or ask that we have open courts so that citizens know exactly their rights, the rights of an arrested person.
Yes.
And in of course, Article 49 of the Constitution, if you're going to arrest somebody, how are you as a police officer supposed to behave, especially if you're confronted with a crowd? Are you supposed to shoot live ammunitions on people. I think the kind of training that our police officers go through is one that is enough to really understand how they are supposed to behave. But of course, we understand that they are also human beings and they have different moods and mood swings depending on what situation they find themselves. Though that really, in my view, is not meant to be an excuse to execute, because in this country we've continuously talked about extrajudicial executions, and this is a conversation that will continue to take place. In a number of the BBI hearings, we had people talking about the powers of the police and how this, interlinks with the rights of people and extrajudicial killings. So this is unfortunate. IPOA needs to come out clearly to be able to give the citizens an opportunity to also be part and parcel of this case. And then Chang'a Dens, where is the place of we used to call them the provincial administration, whether these officers were attached to a chief's office or they were sent by a county commissioner or an officer within the county government. Really, we also need to understand how far a police officer can go against locally recognized institutions of government. For instance, the people that relate on a daily basis with the citizens. I think it would have been much more easier to have other alternative forces or service go to make this arrest, as opposed to people who would ultimately want to use live ammunitions on citizens. But this is unfortunate, and I think we need to follow this to the ultimate conclusion.
Absolutely,
maybe just something just to add on that, which I think the Inspector General, if he's serious, he should be able to follow up on. You know, part of accountability, we need, in incidences like this, you need personal and professional stroke institutional accountability. There is no debate that this child has been killed by a police officer. Now, the immediate reaction should be, this officer, if he's a person who values life and dignity of life, he should have resigned. He should have resigned from the service, or he should have been dismissed.
Absolutely.
That sends a strong signal. Then an apology tendered. Then an inquiry. And I like what Kevin is saying. You know, I'm litigating on these cases. There's a pending case that seeks to deepen accountability for unlawful killings. One way to go about these cases is to commission a judicial commission of inquiry. And the president should not neglect this. You know, there's a problem of unlawful police killings. Let me not call them extrajudicial killings per se, but the problem of unlawful police killings, or just police killings, whether the killing is justified or not, is an ongoing debate. I think we may need a better, more detailed approach if you had a judicial commission of inquiry, where everybody who has lost a relative through what they consider as unlawful killing by the police can come and make a complaint. Then there can be, because this documentation has been going on. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, the Independent Medical and Legal Unit, IMLU, the Kenya Human Rights Commission, the International Justice Mission, IJM, and even ICJ. They've been doing a lot of documentation of these cases, gross violation, but we prefer a more reactive or reactionary approach than a proactive statement. So what we need now, like a child has been killed, it is in order that this officer apologizes this family and the republic by resigning. If he's taking long to resign, let him be dismissed. Then a statement be issued. You know, then the criminal justice will take its natural course. You know, whether now that killing was excessive or not, it's a subject of a criminal inquiry. But at the level of personal and institutional accountability, he ought to have been dismissed or he ought to have resigned.
A preemptive strike is the approach you feel like we should take in deterring such occurrences, because when you look at that boy, he probably didn't even know what was going on. What is Chang'atu? He doesn't know, so he was just probably caught up in all that. And also the question of bribery comes to the front. 50 shillings was the cost of his life, basically, if you put it in a nutshell.
Yeah, this is wrong. In fact, it's unfortunate. But beyond that, we also need to look at we used to have a few years back the question around police reforms. And I remember beyond the launch, what we can see, like blue uniforms and all that. I think the fact that a police officer, you know, this is a face of the government before common citizens, is asking for 50 shillings, right? You know, of course, it's given. I see it being given in matatus, and they pick it once in a while. We see these ESCC, you know, doing their rounds, and then they parade the monies, and it's open on cameras, and we see it. But that really, in my view, presents quite a fundamental question that we need to continue to dig through. I was having lunch with some officers yesterday, and you see the kind of conversation we were having was really what police reforms means. Is it an overt issue? Is it supposed to be inert? What exactly is it? Because beyond what government is doing, which is what the citizens are seeing, uniforms, vehicles, and artillery and all that, there has to be a holistic approach to what we call police reforms. Because it pains me that a police officer shoots at a crowd and then a stray bullet hits on a 3-year-old boy because of 50 shillings. Whether they like it or not, I would believe what the citizens are saying as opposed to what the police would say. But if it is really true that it was about 50 bob, it presents deep-seated issues around our police
that
service.
need to be addressed.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, let's take a look at page 5 of The Nation. We're being told chaos in Murang'a after Nyoro's arrest, and we have seen that in a previous report that we aired earlier on in the bulletin, where Kiharu MP Ndindi Nyoro will be arraigned in court this morning after a dramatic arrest last evening at St. James ACK Cathedral in Murang'a. The arrest, which involved close to 50 General Service Unit officers, came after church chaos in Gitui Catholic Church. Now, we have reported on this previously. It's caused a bit of fracas, and we had Stanley Ndichu reporting on it earlier on. We saw the heavy police presence that was being talked about. When you see this, what do you feel, Mr. Ogola, about this development?
I feel depressed, not because of the arrest of Ndindi Nyoro. You know, Kenyans must also decide, together with the leadership, what is it that you want from the police? Look at the way let us put side by side. On this part, we are demanding accountability. On the other part, police is performing their functions, we're also complaining. No, listen, the arrest of an MP, just like the arrest of another, should not even raise issues. Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, and is my friend. I've been to his constituency, we've done work together. He had an opportunity to present himself. He didn't. When you hear the police is looking for you, present yourself there. You know, staging a resistance of a lawful arrest, politicizing the arrest, and trying to extract dividend from it is just as bad as the idea that the police should use excessive force. And you will see how Kenyans react to this. Kenyans react to the arrest of Ndindi Nyoro based on their political persuasion. Now, that's a dangerous way to go.
It is.
You have to depoliticize the police service and how the public views police service. You can't express support or disapproval of policing based on political persuasion. There are those that are in Team Tangatanga that feel aggrieved. They look at this as political harassment, and unjustifiably so. Because there is reason to arrest. And by the police does not do prosecution. They can arrest on the instruction of the DPP, who will then prefer charges. If the DPP has preferred charges, how are you going to blame the police? I mean, we need to have a level-headed discussion, which also, we must also concede to the functional mandate of the National Police Service. In short, this arrest is well placed. He made comments that were inflammatory. His conduct was unbecoming and undignified. He disrupted the service. You know, if the police feel an offense has been disclosed, he ought to have presented himself and not engaging the police in a cat and mouse game. And eventually, when he's arrested, it is breaking news. Kenyans get arrested all the time. It's just an arrest.
And I think we need perhaps to move forward from an era where we take to the streets over, you know, somebody
That was really long. And you know, for me, I mean, I'm liberated. Okay, let Kenyans decide. Let them do what they want. I'm completely liberated.
Mentally
and even emotionally, I'm liberated from this country. Here's the thing. If an MP has been arrested and then you're mobilized to go and protest against that arrest, and chances are, when he's being arraigned in court, people will be mobilized to go and protest outside the court. That's fine by me. If that is how you want to view policing work, that's fine. But do not rely on the police when there's a serious breakdown in the rule of law. Because right now you're politicizing police work, you are undermining their functional mandate because of political convenience.
Let's get Mr. Osido's comment on this one as we go on break.
Really, this thing has been breaking news. I think it's been discussed enough. It's only fair that we allow the police to do
their job.
Their job. Mheshimiwa Ndindi Njoro is a friend of mine. While I was at Daystar, he was at KU, doing quite a good amount of work with the leadership there. And so I think for me, the question that presents is leadership. And then two is, what sort of example are you setting for our children? Who do they want to see at the political rally, in the house, in church? And the fact that this was happening in church, I think really, I kept asking myself, what is the place of God in our hearts, as opposed to what we want to see people, how we want to relate to people, which is really from a political persuasion.
Yes.
The fact that this has also gone over and beyond expectation, in my view, to, like Steve has said, it's been politicized. It's either Kieleweke or Tanga, and whether it's Wanjiku and all that. It also leaves the place of the common citizen.
Yes, absolutely. And
like anyone who is not from either of the political parties or persuasions, in case you are arrested, would you see this kind of drama and action? Yeah. And lastly, tricks is, as Kevin Osido have been called by police to, a phone call comes, you pick it up and you're told, this is so-and-so from XYZ police station. Can you please present yourself? And I go there, I sit, I listen to what it is. I'm asked to write a statement. I ask whether it is necessary. If it is necessary, I put it down. And the issue is dealt with. Why would we want to make it so dramatic? Yes, of course, you are a Mheshimiwa, but kesho hautakuwa Mheshimiwa, then what will happen? Absolutely. And the same really needs to go even to those who demonstrate when governors and other public servants are arrested on corruption cases. It is not fair to the people of Kenya that somebody has been summoned by police and you are there saying mutu wetu. It doesn't add any pinch of sugar or salt on your table. Let's concentrate on important issues. Let's allow the police to do their work and let people be held to account.
Yes, and mutu wetu won't be on the streets when you are arrested.
Sometimes they don't even pick your calls.
Absolutely. So we need to be mentally liberated or emotionally liberated.
We need a moral revolution.
Moral revolution.
A settled and shared understanding of what is good and what is bad.
And what is
right now, what is good and what is bad is based on political persuasion. And that's a very fluid position to be at.
And very
there has to be a standard measure of how to deal with what is bad and what is good.
What is good. Now, we have to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more discussions on what's happening in the country politically. But for now, see you on the other side.